Told me that this morning. It's just like the boys said it was.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to call this meeting of the Lafayette City Council to order. Please stand, flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kennedy, can you do roll?
Mayor Malcolm
Here?
Councilor Cardwell.
Present.
Councilor Goodgen. Here. Councilor Paulson. Present. Councilor Burrows.
Here.
And Councilor Kidd. Here.
Okay, excuse me. This is time for citizen input of non-agenda items. I do not see anyone signed up. And let's call for anyone that would like to. Okay, moving on. Addition or deletion from agenda? Does anyone have anything? Okay, moving on. Number 6, approval of minutes for August 27, 2024 City Council meeting.
Madam Mayor, Chief Heck actually has a clarification on the fire department discussion on the IGA. And I think you want to clarify some.
On the fire department.
Oh, okay.
So I just wanted to clarify, Samantha is an employee for us, she's not a volunteer. And that's part of their job is to go out on conflict, although she really likes to do it because it puts a lot of money in her pocket.
Okay.
So the other part was, I think at the time, Brennan had mentioned something about, he thought that we were at like 42,000 for sending the brush rig out. We were, at the time, it all depends on how often the apparatus goes out and how long they stay out. At the time, we were about 21,000 and they were out again. And so just a little miscommunication. We're actually currently that roll, they didn't stay out as long. So currently, we're sitting at $25,838.50 that the apparatus is brought back into the state.
So I do know that I stated it that way, which my apologies. That was based off of a conversation with Samantha. But I don't think we can change what was said.
Yeah, no, I wanted to point out
Okay,
the amount of money that the apparatus is brought.
Okay.
Mostly as well.
Is that per month, that month period, or?
No, it's-
so far this year,
Okay,
so
okay.
every time I go, they can go out for a maximum of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's only been out one time for 2 weeks, 2-week roll.
Okay.
But most of the time when we go out, it's just a few days and then it comes back, so.
okay. Yeah, was there anything stated from what I said, or was it just from you listening?
Oh, he was
Oh,
listening.
okay.
There's nothing in the
Okay,
minutes.
no, I appreciate the clarification of, but I thought you were needing us to change something written. I was like,
Nope.
I said it, whether it was legit or not. Okay. Okay, I have just real quick, page 4, letter C, just after number C, just to state that I returned to the dais and relieved, President Paulson of her duties.
Can I add a couple here?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on page 3, and the top paragraph, about halfway through, we have Councilor Gilgan asks if it is comment. I think that's supposed to be common.
Mhm.
And then about halfway through B, it says Councilor Gilgan adds that if a contract specific questions those a better route, I think it's supposed to be are better routed to city administrator jobs. And then finally, the very last word on that page, and we have David here, so he can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe he prefers they, but probably he.
So just clarification for me, I was told to use neutral pronouns. Would you guys prefer I use he and she or keep them neutral?
I did not mean to jump into that.
I would prefer he or she.
Yeah, I
He or she.
he or she.
They can be sometimes confusing depending on the sentence like this, so,
For myself, I prefer she.
but I understand the situation.
I get where you came from.
Just to make sure that I'm doing it correctly for you guys.
Hey, David, I guess while we're on that topic, addressing somebody with pronouns.
Oh, boy.
Are we okay with the like a he and or she? I just want to make sure from a liability standpoint. I'm not trying to get political. I just want to make sure nobody's gonna, if we let somebody he or she, or we assume that there's no liability on the city end.
Yeah, there's no Court of Appeals or Supreme Court ruling or any rule that I understand or know of that requires you to use pronouns, I guess, preemptively. You ask the
Okay.
person, and the person may ask what pronouns they want.
Or if they
So-
came back in and wanted us to correct it on the minutes kind of thing.
Right.
Right.
I'm perfectly happy being a he or a they or an it.
I've been called worse, so I'm just making sure.
Of the lawyer.
The lawyers, but yeah, the lawyer.
Oh, you're okay, just good. So we're talking liability tonight. You got to throw one more question out for David.
That was smart
The,
to ask,
the li-
yeah.
the liability trap is if somebody asks and you continue to misgender them, then you
Okay.
get into a trap.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
Can I motion that, with the adjusted, lines past the minutes from Tuesday, August 27th?
Second.
okay, I have a motion to approve with the stated changes to the minutes to pass them. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
And Kennedy, I realized that I only pointed out one. I also realized that I didn't get to the rest just based on what you told us there, but we approved them like that, so it's whatever.
Okay, moving on, discussion, 7A, political candidate signs, Lafayette zoning and development ordinance section 2.206.06. And Brandon, I'll hand this over to you, but I also understand that it was a request of Councilor Paulson, so want to give her a chance to.
Yeah, just in generalities for the staff report, Council President Paulson, after a meeting, had said, hey, she asked me some stuff about the sign code. We had some discussion on it, and she's like, once we cool down after July or August, can we put that on for September's? And that's why it's here. I don't know if you want to go into more detail before I turn it over to David, or?
Just want to make sure we get what you.
No, we can pass it on over and then I can pop in if I need.
Great.
Don't want to waste people's time on it.
Awesome. So in doing some research on the initial topic request, I was going back and forth with our city planner, Jim Jacks and David, and then we also included Council President Paulson in those conversations. It opened up a whole Pandora's box of, whoa, what are we doing with the political speed signs and enforcing, and then a lot of issues came up when it comes to the Supreme Court rulings. And David said, hey, for right now, we probably need to have a bigger discussion on this, especially if we have been enforcing it up until I was told last week. As of right now, it's not enforced. And I want to make sure council understands what the current law is and ways we can go about keeping the law if there's certain things that are met. But I'll let David go on to that.
All right, thank you. So just as an introductory, let's just establish what this thing says, 2.20606 subpart L. It states that during a period of 30 calendar days prior to and 14 days after an officially scheduled election, blah, 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 non-lighted signs not exceeding 6 square feet and not exceeding total 32 square feet may be displayed on private property. Great. There's nothing unconstitutional about that. It is a reasonable time, place, and manner control over signage. However, when you get into enforcement, how do you enforce that? Because what we have now is that, standing alone, that subpart L is a reasonable regulation of time, place, and manner. We have to read it in context of the rest of the code. So you have code section 2.206.08A that reads 4 signs shall be permitted per property. The maximum sign area for the 4 signs combined shall be 8 square feet. So those two pieces of code are equivalent. They act at the same time. What the problem is that subpart L doesn't increase the number of signs allowable. It only increases the square feet. And so when you apply 206.08A, this residential duplex, you still have a limit of 4 signs. And so the math is 6 square feet times 4 signs, 24 square feet. The problem with subpart L is that you allow additional square footage, but it doesn't allow additional number of signs. And so I think that when you read that subpart L during the period of 30 calendar days prior to and 14 calendar days after an officially scheduled election, you need to add some words. And I suggested 4 additional non-lighted signs not exceeding square feet and not exceeding total of 32 square feet may be displayed on private property. Because if you're trying to enforce this thing, you have a square footage problem, but you also have a number of sign problems. In the end, and this is the really dodgy part of sign code, when the code enforcement officer is walking through trying to enforce, and the person has maybe too many signs or too many political signs, which signs does the code enforcement officer say, hey, property owner, you got to take this sign and this sign and this sign down? You have to read the signs to figure out which signs the property owner has to remove. And so the application, the enforcement becomes almost impossible. And that's the legal ecosystem that we all live in after Reed versus Town of Gilbert. You can have a maximum number of signs, you can have a square footage. When it comes to content, and again, my original suggestion to Jim Jacks was get rid of subpart L in total. Don't do anything with political signs. And he pointed out that the words on the paper are actually constitutionally correct. And I agree with him. And he's really good at what he does. But the enforcement comes down to when you're going to tell a property owner which signs they have to take down, how do you tell them? You have to remove what? The political signs? You can't tell a person that because you have to read the sign in order to enforce your sign code. And that's the nuts and bolts of Reed versus Town of Gilbert. So I think that in the end, if you want to just make a simple change to your code, you can add the words "for additional" to subpart L after the comma that says limits to vote for a candidate or vote on an issue, 4 additional non-lighted signs not exceeding 6 square feet and not exceeding a total of 32 square feet may be displayed on private property. That solves the square footage problem, the dissonance between the amount of square footage allowed from 2.60606 and 2.20608. So the math works. But in the enforcement time, the only thing the code enforcement officer is going to be able to say at the end is, hey, you have to get rid of some of your signs. You can leave the political signs, you can leave the welcome to my happy home signs, but you have to get rid of some of the signs. We're not going to tell you which ones.
But when we get to the content of the signs, and this is kind of where a lot of the concerns that we had came up, because we had a complaint come in about a political sign, and we enforced that sign as per what we've been doing. And then somebody made an adequate point, and it was a hot topic amongst staff last week, was, and I'll use the same party. I'm not gonna politicize this. We see in town somebody that has Trump 2024 or Ultra MAGA, but then you have who was Reagan's running partner?
Bush.
Yeah, and then Reagan Bush. How do you deviate from something being a statement sign versus a political sign?
Mm-hmm.
Because right now you can see a Trump 2024 sign, but that can just be a statement or a way of life. But then you see a Harris sign, but then you see Harrison Waltz and you see a ticket there, which is the actual voter ticket. So it's been a very hot topic, and even some of my peers are like, I wouldn't touch this, you need to get rid of this completely. And I know when Council President Paulson had come, I think the intention was, I don't like having the window of when I can and cannot put up a thing, from what I understand, or at least talk about it.
So it included the content issue
Yeah.
for
So-
me as well.
David, is this a reasonable person thing?
It's not a reasonable person thing. It has to be reasonable time, place, manner. So it has to be objective. So if you
So
want to,
time, place, and manner, you probably have looked at this more recently than law school than I have, but so it's like a three-pronged test, right? It's narrow, it's content neutral, narrowly tailored, and alternative methods of speech. Is that right?
it's different than regulating speech. It's narrowly tailored to affect a limited government interest. And limited government interest in this point is aesthetics. We don't want a proliferation of signs. We don't care what they say, but we don't want a proliferation of signs. And so we make a sign code that says in the residential area, you can have 4 signs. In the commercial district, maybe you get 16. And in those signs, you get a square foot allowance so that the entire visual impact of the frontage of the property isn't all signage. And then you have the easy ones like no flashing, no obstructing clear vision requirements, things like that. Those are easy to enforce. They're completely constitutional. So we're dealing with strictly aesthetics, not content.
Mhm.
Well, but the
this-
policy has to be content neutral. That's what I mean.
Exactly. And that's why my original advice to Jim Jacks and Brandon was delete L in its entirety. Just get the idea of political signs out. But Jim was right. I mean, subpart L is reasonable time, place, manner. When it comes time to enforcement, though, what do? If you allow someone to have 4 extra signs during political season, and then political season ends, and code enforcement comes by and someone has too many signs, what's the enforcement look like? Hey, you
It's
have to
just
get rid of
like-
some of your signs.
Right.
So is
Yeah,
You
it,
don't have to tell them which ones.
yeah,
You don't tell them which ones exactly.
But that
Because the
was-
constitutional trap is both in the words and in the code, but also in how we enforce it.
Right, but I don't understand why there's an enforcement problem if you're not telling them which signs to take down.
Because
That's content neutral.
There might not be an
Specific.
There
to-
might not be an enforcement problem, but I bring it up as only a point of
to become one.
education. So when it's time, when political season ends, that your code enforcement officers and walk through and say, hey, take down those campaign signs, because they can't constitutionally say that. They can only say take down
That you have too many
the
signs.
number of signs. Yeah. You
Um,
have too much square footage of signage in your residential area.
Counselor Paulson, did you have?
Well, but that's my point. Under this right now, it's really focused on the political signs. So it is, in my opinion, limiting the content of it because it's focused on that. I understand the number of signs and the restrictions and the size of them and all of that. I think that's absolutely reasonable. My focus was I wanted L out because
Mhm.
we run into the problem where, okay, is that political speech or not?
Or is it expressing
So-
opinion?
And so I just wanted that out. So I just want to make my position clear.
Let me make sure I'm following through. So L is basically, we added it to make it easier to put up, to relax the rules to allow more signs, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
However, but according to Jim Jacks and me, we were talked it through, and whoever drafted that missed it. They didn't
Okay.
add the words additional signs. They just add
Yeah.
additional square feet.
I'm
So
just-
we're stuck with the 4 sign limit, but with a square footage allowance that is greater than what the number of signs would allow under 2.20608.
So if we removed L, we're just removing and added, here's extra time that extra signs can be. It's not that it almost stands alone that we could just remove that. And
would
then the
love that.
political signs could fall through the rest of the rules. Do they meet the
I would-
size?
I would love that. I would endorse that, because that means the property owner has to make a choice. I get a maximum of 4 signs with a maximum of, what was that, 24 square feet. And
Yeah.
if my live, laugh, love sign and my other sign, I have to make a choice. Do I want to put in
Yeah.
my political sign and take away a sign? Great. But we're not giving an extra allowance during political season.
Right.
And we're not actually drawing attention to politics either. We're not drawing
So-
our needle of attention to politics.
So in our attempt to be helpful in giving extra sign use, I don't want that to turn around and then bite us in the rear that, we try to give this extra grace of extra signs and extra things, but then it causes a problem with, they could still have those signs up based off of the rest of the sign rules.
Actually, I believe this reads to imply that except for this time window, you cannot have political signs up. And that's my issue with it.
So if you remove this, though, you're talking about a city that could have political signs
You're
365.
Yes,
Well, what about,
only
Right.
4 signs up to 24 square feet.
what about, letter J? It limits the time limit for
Mhm.
temporary signs, so you can have a whole bunch of political
Yeah,
signs
so
for
you can
90
only have
days,
them for 90 days.
and they're out.
Well, then the dispute is what's considered temporary.
Yeah.
Well, and I also know, I look back at the 2013 meeting, and actually, I think we had the chair at the time here still. And there was a lot of discussion, in the minutes regarding political signs. And there was a lot of talk about being able to have political signs whenever they want, however many they wanted.
Non-temporary signs, let's take it away from the residents, let's go business. A temporary sign, if it's not a temporary sign, do they have to have it approved? Or,
It
Temporary,
depends if it goes through, if it's on a structure that requires planning and development review.
okay,
So things that can blow over, things that are affixed to the ground. Yeah,
okay.
like the banner
So
signs,
that-
flag signs.
I mean, that maybe when we redraft this, or if we choose to redraft this, that we define what a temporary sign is or isn't. I don't know, but I also, and I'm gonna throw another kink. If we're taking out content, I think we need to take K out also.
And that came
I'm
up as
glad
well.
you brought that up because-
I mentioned if I want to celebrate Christmas all year long, I should be able to celebrate Christmas all year long. So.
no,
I
and I'm
mean,
glad you brought that up because we have a whole lot of holidays in this country that aren't recognized federal holidays. And I made a comment too that K probably isn't enforceable. Because what is a holiday? What is a holiday sign? And I was bringing this up that on Main Street in Toledo and on Highway 101 in Lincoln City, there's a Christmas store. 24, hours a day, 365 days, there's Christmas signs up. It's the Christmas store, so it's really hard to enforce. Probably
Yeah.
unenforced. Would say hard to enforce. It's unenforceable. The
Okay.
section sub K holiday signs.
Okay,
I would have trouble with the definition of temporary signs.
okay,
And because it says temporary signs and banners, and I'm keeping my eyes open as I'm driving around and I see flags and banners are becoming very popular, whether you
flags are separate.
or right, if it's on a flagpole,
Mm-hmm,
but a flag on your garage door.
correct.
Okay, but flags and banners, or you can say beavers, ducks.
Mm-hmm,
There's a lot of statements made with banners now. That needs to me, that needs to be looked at too, is what we define, our flags and banners to be.
So what I'm gathering is we probably need to send this to the planning commission to go over.
I would send it to planning commission. And I would send them with the model sign code from the League of Oregon Cities and let them go over it and then think about all of the territorial boundaries of Lafayette and just
Okay.
see what Lafayette is doing and whether that model sign code works. Because I know in the guidance from the League of Oregon Cities and constitutional law professors and people that I read is that when you start to refer to specific things like holidays and political signs, it's really, it's impossible. You can't, once you open that ordinance, you end up in an enforcement nightmare. You can't enforce on people. So you stick to the number of signs, amount of square footage, period. You do it for your residential zone, you do it from your commercial zone.
Counselor Gilligan, not Gilligan, I'm sorry, Carswell.
I may be part of the minority, but I feel like if you're not a part of an HOA and you own your house, you should just be able to put 100 signs up, so.
And yeah, it's your property, it's your
Yeah.
freedom of speech. Otherwise, it's an infringement.
So, well,
There has to be reasonableness.
Oh,
I'm gonna push
So-
back on I'm gonna push back on the sign, that sign analogy for a minute, because you can't allow your blackberries to grow unregulated and create health risks. There are regulations that local government is allowed to do for aesthetics, health, public safety
Well,
Okay.
and the.
under home
to
rule
be-
authority.
I feel like a lot of this has gotten pulled into First Amendment discussion,
Mhm.
but the First Amendment is subject to time, place, and manner restrictions. Like that has to be considered.
Okay, so I have an audience.
Dr. 41 Row, I'm speaking based upon the work that was done at the planning commission where I served as the chair. And this has to go, the concept of extra signs for a limited time period under no intent does that.
Can I have you, sorry, I think David's struggling to hear you.
Yeah.
Oh,
so-
Okay, I'm sorry. Ron Kerr, 41 Row. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but also from my memory of as a planning commission chair. Based on the issue of sign code that came up here with regard to, you've got a window where you can have certain number of signs all year long, and then you got this little window where we can have political signs. And extra square footage, extra number. The idea was make it so that, yes, you can have additional speech during that time period. But then you can regulate it down, but at the same time, you are not regulating the content of what can be on the remaining signs. You are not being politically constrained. You can swap different signs, you could swap out different signs during the course of the year. It's just that during that political season, it's like, yes, you can have greater expression because you might want to, but just because you are told at the end of that season, you've got two signs during the normal year and 6 signs during that time. Yes, you have to take down 4 signs. That does not hinder your ability to have political.
The problem
speech.
is right now, any political sign though is being treated only in this window. So it's being interpreted to mean that outside of this window, you can't have any
No,
political
and right,
sign.
and that would not be, and that would not.
But that's
be-
where I want this
would not be- That would not be true. And
So-
should never have been.
But that's the problem we're facing now, and that's why I was
improper
like, this needs to
interpretation of
be
it.
fixed, because it is being interpreted and enforced that way, so let's fix it.
So is it fair to say we as a council are requesting our sign codes to go to the planning commission with the understanding of not just looking at the political signs, but since that's what brought it to us, we realize there's other things too since you're gonna look at the whole thing.
Take it, some of the weaknesses, it sounds like there's some other weaknesses or at least points to be
Mhm.
contemplate, temporary signs, banners, flags.
Like, since we're working on it and we need to figure out this political sign thing, let's just do the whole thing.
Make sure that it can be done, that it's fair, that it's
Mhm.
enforceable, but it also falls within the time frame that Councilor Gillian said, that is, yes, speech can be either regulated or speech can certainly be moderated to the point of, hey, I appreciate the concept, Councilor Carswell, yes, if you own your own home, you should be able to put anything as much up as you want, but
Can't have.
that
too
needs to be,
much
that needs to be
free speech.
tempered, I suppose that needs to be tempered, but,
Sorry.
No, does this sign code that we're looking at, this also relates to businesses? Or is there
it
more?
applies both residential, all encompassing, so.
Okay, so
You
like,
might need to carve it out a little bit more too.
so in order to enforce this, there's some businesses that we need to define what is and isn't a sign, because they're like an advertisement of, I don't want to pick on a business. I'm not-
No, yeah.
But like all these paper, a whole wall of ads for different products, is that a sign?
And it depends upon whether it's inside the business or if it's inside.
No, on the
building,
outside of the
it's
building,
outside.
so I'm not,
In
I
my
have a hard time enforcing things with the residents stronger than we enforce for the businesses. So,
Correct.
In my experience, enforcing signs in a commercial district is virtually impossible, because if you walk by any number of businesses, they might have stickers on their windows out facing. Now, I know in Main Street Toledo, there's one bar that probably has 75 signs in their frontage.
mhm.
I mean, you kind of got to allow the signage in the commercial district and try not to overregulate it. except for flashing, things that are distracting, things that have been shown by the Court of Appeals, Supreme Court to be regulating, inflatable signs, things that obstruct clear vision requirements. I think you'd focus narrowly on the residential structure and aesthetics and keep it to time, place, manner, size of the signs, the number of signs, the maximum square footage. And then if you want to give allowances during certain periods of time, say holiday, you get 3 extra signs, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Great Kwanzaa, things like that. You can do that, but then make sure your square foot measurement matches. And then at the end, you can't really tell people to remove the signs based on the content. It's just you've given people extra signs, extra square feet during limited duration periods.
So
I
David,
personally think yes.
no, go ahead. I thought you were.
I think it's easier to not say anything. Just make a uniform number of signs
That's what I agree.
12 months a year and a square footage in the residential district. So it's just people know. That's what they have.
So we don't have the power to just cross this off tonight and be like, hey, problem solved. There's processes we have to do. As our attorney, what do you suggest we do during this time frame of taking our sign code and working on it? Do we
Don't
direct
enforce.
our
Don't enforce.
Okay.
Yeah, don't enforce because you have a square footage dissonance between 2.08 and 2.06. The political signs versus the regular 4 signs. You have a 32 square foot limitation, 24 square foot limitation. The square footage allowance doesn't mesh. So I would just not enforce. I would not enforce. Then you put it to planning commission and really go for something simplified. I mean, just and focus on the residential, the aesthetics of residential living. Because I think when we all work into it, when we all go into a commercial district, we expect to get bombarded with signs. And a lot of us don't think stickers on windows are signs, but they are under the decision of Reed versus Town of Gilbert. Flags are signs, banners are signs. I mean, any kind of message is a sign. So when you think specifically about the residential district, completely remove content from the conversation. We don't care what it is, whether it's Christmas, political season, summer vacay, whatever it is. You think about square footage, you think about, where I live and where my neighbors live. And when I'm walking through, how much visual distortion do I want to see versus architecture and green grass and foliage?
Okay.
I just want to jump in and just clear the air. I actually agree with you. If you own your property, you do what you want with it. I just want to make sure everybody understands what we have right now is not unconstitutional.
Right.
On its face. Within the First Amendment, it can't be regulated. So that's all I was trying to make clear.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
Yes.
And I have a question for you, if I may. And
Yes,
that
sir.
is, you say regulate square footage, yes. Regulate number of sign, yes. Can it be still legal and enforceable to regulate not just number and square footage, but also perhaps additional square footage or additional number at certain times here? So you have a defined window where you can have 8 signs as opposed to 6.
Yes.
Yes, so, okay, so we
Yes.
can have those 3 touch points. Total square
Yes.
footage, total number of signs, and then certain defined, well-defined periods, just not just total contract and content neutral.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes.
So.
That's right. And I don't want to throw little hand grenades in, but the sign code is full of hand grenades. What do you do with an illuminated Christmas sign that says Merry Christmas? We all love those. I mean, right now, the political signs can be non-illuminated. There's an issue about non-illuminated signs. Temporary signs. This is dodgy. I mean, you can ask all the lawyers. We're all going to come up with different ideas of what a temporary sign is. I mean, you can spend hours and hours trying to micromanage what a temporary sign is, what the purpose is. I don't have a good answer for you. I apologize. I don't.
Apply for a temporary permit on their sign, they have to put it there.
I say.
Outside the political sign.
To put Christmas lights up and stuff?
No, just like if they want to do like, garage sale.
But this is where I agree with David. Get rid of the content and just try to simplify this.
Okay.
you know, get rid of the word temporary signs or banners, like just stop trying to make it so hard.
I'm hearing simplify it, removing content. Do I also, where are we with different times a year? Are we just saying 365, same?
If you try to increase during a holiday,
Mhm.
you're gonna miss some holidays, because there's a lot.
Yeah.
Again, how do you define a
And
holiday?
how do you define a holiday?
How do you find a holiday? How do you find
Wednesday was hat day
You
for
know,
washer, that.
whatever national month it is, you know, those are all done. And just one more question too, is a 25-foot blow up Santa Claus, is that a sign?
No, those, I have to look at your code closely, but normally those are prohibited because of danger. So blow up signs can catch wind, can cause traffic accidents. So usually blow up signs are prohibited both in the commercial and residential districts. I have to look-
But like a blow up, you know, like a blow up snow globe in your yard
Yeah,
for Christmas
just like-
decoration, is that considered a sign? Or is that just a lawn ornament?
Is that a decoration?
I want no part of this.
Probably
Okay,
depends.
let's give that to the planning commission.
Okay.
I think we're getting off topic. All
Okay.
this needs to go to the planning commission.
Okay,
I just want to clarify one more thing. Are we
Yes.
talking about getting rid of content in the code? To be clear, the code does not currently regulate content. It's content neutral.
Mhm.
I think we're talking about purposes, whether it's holidays or political season. I don't want to be semantic, but in the law regarding the First Amendment, you can't regulate content. That's not what we're doing. Whether it's pro Republican sign or pro Democrat sign, they're treated the same under our current code. Is that correct, David?
I couldn't have said it any better myself. That was really, I mean, that was great. That was really well said. You're right.
okay,
So. It's going to the planning commission, it can be a few months, maybe 3 to 4, maybe
Okay.
5 months. So
so
this should
then,
be hopefully
November
early
next
part
year?
of next year,
okay,
right? I
so.
mean, it should be fairly, so.
So sending it to the planning commission to simplify it,
Yeah.
making it, removing all the extra content things.
They'll have to have public hearings, they'll have to,
Yeah, yeah,
they'll have,
yeah,
if they
I'm
want to
just-
bring forward to you all.
Yeah, we're not we're not asking them to clean up L or whatever, we're asking them to. Just, you know, no extra times for this or that, just make it. And then in the meantime, are we,
But we're gonna do the whole sign code, since
yeah.
I think it's probably best
That's
to
what I mean.
focus on all of 2.206.
The planning commission, they need some directive in terms of why we're sending it to them, and that is to simplify it and take out these extra 90 days.
Here are things of our concern that
Yes.
we would want, that we think should be addressed
Mhm.
in some manner, shape, or form.
And
And the only comment I was gonna make about that time period is, I wouldn't call the time period, if you're gonna have extra signage available from December 15th through January 5th, I would not call it a holiday season, I would just sit down and say, hey, extra signage is available between
you fill in the
October
blank.
15th and November 5th, or something, or November 15th, something like that.
Okay,
If you wanted to do it that way, I can understand not. But I
And
would
then
want to
not
at least leave it
enforce.
open so that you could use that as a tool if you so chose.
and then Brandon, would you like a directive from council based off of the advice of our attorney to not enforce?
Yeah, for public consumption, yes, I think, giving the authority, well,
Or is that something?
Dave, I mean, they don't need to vote on that. I mean, we have direction not to enforce 2.206 until we get this cleared up. I mean, that's pretty much a directive. We don't need to vote on that, right?
No, but you can enforce 2.206.08
Correct.
Yes,
because that is concrete. It's there. 2.206 adds dissonance. It adds some confusion. I wouldn't enforce on a time period or a political period, but you have a square footage allowance in that subpart 0.08 that makes sense. So I would go through your political season, get through your existing code section 14 days after, and then come out of it afterwards, and then look at what you've got. See if there's something that needs to be enforced under the basic rule, under 08.
okay,
Perfect clarity. Thank you, David.
okay,
Could we still enforce square footage
yes,
besides
We're just saying we're not enforcing
Gotcha,
L, right?
yes.
Well, it'll be all of 2.206.06.
Yes.
So we'll just completely omit this section of enforcement and just go straight to 2.207
Because yeah,
and then 08, yeah.
because it's under review.
206.08A is really simple. 4 signs permitted per property, maximum sign area, 4 signs combined shall be 8 square feet. That is completely enforceable.
Okay,
What you've added with that subpart L from 2.0606 makes it just more difficult.
okay. So for instance, somebody who's been waiting for 30 days to put up their political sign.
Right.
It doesn't,
Well,
it the same, we're not enforcing that, but it goes to the other one.
and I gotta tell you, I sympathize with you, I empathize with you. I've been in planning commission. This is hard because the issue of real estate's for sale signs will come up. What happens if my dog pees on my welcome mat and I hang it up? Do I have a new sign that says welcome because I'm drying my welcome mat? I mean, this is a whole. I mean, the Court of Appeals have given us, we have been given an unworkable or truly unworkable system nationwide. And so it locally, at the planning commission, invite everybody who cares to get their vote in.
Okay.
But really stick to number of signs, square foot, something that everyone can agree on.
Okay. Thank you, David, for talking so
Much about signs.
yeah, like so much about it and in such a way that we can process all together.
You're welcome. This isn't easy. This isn't easy for lawyers. I mean, we talk about this and it's like, it's basically a handshake agreement between the city government and the citizens and how to make something work. And I mean, what is it? Justice Brandeis's definition of pornography. I know when I see it. I know when a proliferation of signs is so ugly that it's terrible. We know when we see it, but how do we make a rule that says no? It's not possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any further on this topic from council? Ready to move on?
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was good seeing you all. Okay,
Good.
Brandon, before I check out, I want you to let you the SDC matter. I've been going through it like multiple times today. I'm going to get you an answer sometime tomorrow. I just had a couple of doctor's appointments I had to leave for, and there's a lot of information about it. Okay.
Okay, awesome. And then Council President Paulson, I'll be meeting with her tomorrow over that. So we may have some additional, or if you have anything for me to bring to that, let me know.
What time do you want to phone me in? What time do you want to phone me in?
We're gonna meet at 3:30 here at the office. Do you want to be on that call?
I'll just calendar it if you want to give me a call. Absolutely, because it's at my first thing in the morning at like 4 a.m., 4:30 when I get up. Because it's all these documents, all these emails are open on my other screen, and I just haven't been able to process all of the information from Jim, Jackson, Kurt, and all the resolutions that passed. There's a lot of information there. Okay.
Awesome. All right, I'll send it to you first thing in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Have a good night.
Thanks, David.
Okay, on to 7B, Recology follow-up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am reaching out to the party because he was supposed to be here. We talked about it and they're not here.
Okay,
So-
so we will move on. If they show up before we leave, I'm happy to put them right back in. Okay, action item, A, holiday lights contest prize. Brandon, is anything you wanna? Yeah, or I can.
No, I mean, last month you had discussed some of this with council regarding the PGE donation, so I'll let you kind of run into this.
Okay, basically, I'm just asking for council's approval that we take the money out of the $500 donated by PGE, which is in one fund, and use that money to pay set amounts of water bills for the prizes. The other option is I can go buy gift cards from like Winco. The suggestion Councilor Gilligan gave me of trying to do a match point with a certain business was a dead end.
We already received the money. From
Yes.
PG.
And so any type of utility bill crediting, which essentially would have to come through you all. I'm not able to do that with my authority. in something in this case. It's out of my authority.
Okay, I have a quick
Yes.
question. With the utility bill credit, is there someone that could win the contest that could be left out, a renter? Someone that the MB doesn't pay a water bill, maybe the owner of the property pays a water bill, but they did they like to decorate for the holidays, and is there somebody that could be left out of winning a prize that they can't win, or winning a prize that does them no good? I guess would be what I would ask.
So I don't know the factual answer, because I don't know everybody's rental arrangements, but I think it's more common that renters handle their own utilities.
Yes.
And I think you might see that more often when people come sign up for the utilities, it's usually the renter, not the.
Yeah, when they're under, they actually have to, they get the deposit.
That doesn't exist, right? Because I don't know everybody's circumstances, but generally, I think it's usually.
And it may be from a long time ago, but it was one of the things that could get a lien on a property was the water bill not being paid.
Yes.
And so many of the owners back in the day, in my time, would pay the water bill and include that in the rent. So I don't know if that's still common practice or not. No. Okay.
Yeah, no. So an apartment complex, typically, the residents are responsible for their own water, but some property owners for apartment complexes will do an average. In Portland, where I was managing properties, the water was increasing so fast that they averaged it out and tacked that on top of the rent. But if you're renting a home from somebody, then you're responsible for the utilities. So it really depends on the location of where that property is.
The Abbey Heights apartments. I'm wondering though if because when I rented an apartment in Wilsonville, our water, no, we each were billed, but not.
So because there's a sewer system that's tied into the apartment complexes, the property owner is responsible for the water and the sewer and typically the garbage. So initially, 10, 15 years ago, when I moved to Oregon, they just absorbed that cost. When Portland started raising rates, apartment complexes started figuring out the average of what everybody was using, and they charged their tenants anywhere from $25 to $75 extra a month and called it a utility charge.
So could we put we wouldn't be paying it anyway until they won, that we could put a clause that if instead, or they could pick water or a gift card to Winco.
Or cash.
We can't do cash.
That'd be awesome if parents could pay off.
Brandon told me we can't do cash.
Can we do a visa?
I just think if we're aware that this could happen.
No, I
don't know
appreciate
if
that.
it could, and we can address that situation when it happens and say, oh, yeah.
Well, I guess in opposed to doing a gift card, we could just do a Visa, one of those Visa cards. So that's technically a cash.
I don't want to pay $9.95
Oh my
in
gosh,
fees for each card
weasels.
to do a Visa card.
Lawyers.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm okay with doing, I really like the idea of doing a utility, partly because it's a utility that donated it and utilities is a hot topic. But my number one thing is it being a usable prize. I'm still gonna go after all the fun prizes. Like last year, Carlton Farms donated a meat package and LCAT did a beautiful, to go with each of them. But
I'm fine with that. I am. I just don't want to be surprised if something extraordinary happens.
Yeah, this is a great idea though.
I think because we already have the money from PG, makes the most sense. I would have rather not taken money from PG in the current situation, but we have it.
I know if we could give it back and they lower the increase.
well, since I asked them if they would sponsor prizes, it'd be.
I'd say let's just go with this. It is what it is. I think the chances of it being are minimal. If that happens, they can come talk to Brandon and it can be dealt with, and we'll cross that bridge when it comes.
Situation that comes.
Because we don't have to, so we could easily, prior to paying them, because it's 3 people, 4 people.
Yeah.
Make contact with them and let them, and if they say something like, oh, I don't pay my bill, so-and-so does, we could offer them instead that we would do like a Winco gift card or something.
Sure.
Does that work?
Okay, so I'll make a motion. I move to approve the water bill credit option presented for the 2024 holiday home decorating contest.
I'll second.
Okay, I have on the table a motion to approve the water bill credit options presented for the 2024 holiday home decorating contest. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, on to reports. So Brandon, I will hand this section over to you.
Unless anybody has any questions, I have a couple of notes. As we're looking over the Public Works report, we got a notification yesterday from the city of Dayton that they're gonna have to put their residents on water restrictions, which obviously we share a treatment plant with them in a system. So, and as if you look at the numbers, this month we only use 8% of our shared system. And we had some concerns about this year because we've been using a lot less than what we should be at the 50%, but just the system isn't producing what it should be. So we've been using Mac Water and Light more. So obviously this is gonna be a much bigger discussion. And now that a majority of council will be here in January, we're gonna have those discussions as soon as Dayton hires their next city manager. Because I think now we need to start talking more aggressively. So long story short, with Dayton, we asked for this month and also last month, because we only used 8%, that when we get because we get a twice-a-year bill for the shared system. The next bill will only have 4 months instead of 6 months. So will we save that money? We're gonna take that money that instead of paying Dayton, we put that into the extra use for Mac Water and Light. And after talking with Chad, it's most likely gonna still be a dry October. So we would address it and say, okay, well, then there's 3 months we're not paying for the shared system because we're using for Mac Water and Light. And then they talked about now they want to be open to a regional water association, because originally they didn't want to do this years ago. It was just us and Carlton, and Mac Water and Light, long-term what this looks like. But now they're talking about, well, maybe the conversations 6-7 years ago are now something that, so long story short, there's definitely gonna be some discussion coming up soon on that. But I did want to let you know that at least we're gonna be using Mac Water and Light more, but at least we're getting the credit for not using our shared system. So we told them right away and they said they completely understood that. I wasn't gonna pay for a system that we're getting 8% water out of. But then also, obviously, we have water rights discussions coming up after talking with Tim and GSI. So there's a lot of water stuff coming up in 2024 or 2025. 2024 is almost over. A lot of water talk in 2025, especially the first half. So, and then secondly, talking about parks, we've had a pretty significant uptick in graffiti at Perkins Park, to where it led to charges being placed on some juveniles, and and we just had another one, I think yesterday we saw some more yesterday morning. So I've been looking at getting some additional cameras at Perkins Park. So we can maybe use that, because there are times we are going back for restitution for either the juveniles or for the adults. So we ask for full restitution, especially most of the time it takes us more than an hour or two to do this, to get the cleanup.
No snipers?
I'm sorry?
No snipers?
No. But we're also in that too, we are looking at equipping our code enforcement officer with a vehicle cam, but also a cam for his personal body. Just I think for the protection of everybody when it comes to their safety and his safety. We're working with CIS right now to see what that looks like for the code enforcement officer. Just because there's been a lot of if a question arises, either on both sides, it's a lot harder for me to make a determination on the proper scenario. And having a camera, especially, it is law enforcement adjacent, it's code enforcement. I've done them in the past, but I want to make sure that in Oregon, we have no issues with CIS. So CIS is going through that policy now to see if there's no issues. Since he isn't a law enforcement officer, to make sure we have no liability issues. And if there's not, we'll probably move forward with equipping our code enforcement officer with a deck camera, but also a camera on himself.
Okay.
Any questions, concerns on any of that?
On the public works, I see a lot of equipment is ordered and we're ready to roll on getting that installed, put together. Is that correct? Yes, yes, okay.
3 of the 4 pages are being installed published. I didn't actually have it scheduled yet, so I kind of put in the report that I have it on schedule.
Okay, okay.
Yes, but yes.
And also, as you all know, in my weekly updates, we have yet to find a public works director. So for the foreseeable future, we will be contracting out with Chad and his partners consulting firm to oversee our system to sign off. Unlike what we're being charged with Mark last time, it's significantly cheaper. It's about $1,200 a month. So
Tell him that.
he knows, but I kind of,
I know.
we did so much for him at Lafayette, he gave us a great deal. So, and we need to have somebody because we're not gonna be able to find anybody and we cannot.
Russian.
We can't do what we did in the past because what we did in the past are gonna cost us a lot of money.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
Who did you say suggested it would be not a wet October?
Chad
Chad did.
did it.
We should short water.
I'll just clarify on that. It's not gonna be a wet enough month to fill your water well. It might rain, but it takes a long time to saturate the ground.
Yeah.
like mid-November probably.
Yeah, so typically we start seeing more groundwater rise in November, December time. It takes time to saturate the ground. And I'm not sure that DIG is going on water restrictions, this is trying to avoid that. So,
I was gonna say, how is that happening?
yeah, just to try to
It's
avoid
been
it.
that much.
Well, there's a lot of factors, the aquifers are different, so that joint systems aquifer way back when. We drilled the wells way deep, but the local farmers and stuff protested, so we were only allowed to put our pumps at a certain footage, about 100 foot above where we drilled. They're able to access the lower aquifer, which draws from the same aquifer we're drawing from, so if they're drawing more, they would suck it down. There's a lot of factors, but basically they're just getting to a static level that is threatening shut off points on wells.
any other questions for Brandon on any of the other department reports? Okay, any council reports? Okay, Mayor, one is very quick, only been a couple weeks since our last council meeting, just working on welcoming new businesses to town. We have a new one and then we have a few more in the process of being open and working on the holiday season, which I know it seems early, but to get things planned and on the calendar and organized. So with that, we're ready for 12 if someone wants to.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
I
All opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Has anybody ever been opposed?
don't know.
I don't know, I don't get to.
My
vote,
daughter
so-